GLC 30A and Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people to gather in one place, this meeting of the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines to the remote participation can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen and or watch the meeting may do so either online via the town's on-demand video broadcast on cable television on channel 191, or dial into the meeting at 774-304-1455, enter 1428 pound for the meeting number and 12345 for the access code. This phone number will only be active during public meetings. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that public can adequately access the meeting proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio and video recording, transcript, or a comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, we have a quorum check. We have a full quorum tonight. All right, start up, Mr. Barnacle. Say here.
Here, David Barnacle.
Steve Haldeman.
Steve Haldeman here.
Eric Gaspar.
Eric Gaspar here.
Stephen Chidester.
Stephen Chidester here.
And Ed Goodwin here. I will read the opening statement for public hearings into the record. In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland water body or resource area and or within a 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland water body or resource area in accordance with Mass Wetland Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the town's Sturbridge's wetland bylaw and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to the opening of the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. If these items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project and the applicant and the applicant's representative. Okay. That said, we have a quorum. Becky, there has not been a CPA meeting. There will be one coming up. Trails, David?
The Trails Committee is meeting next Tuesday, but we should remind everybody that the Heinz Farm facility is wide open and has decorated trees on it, and the contest for the scavenger hunt for the 11th consecutive year is taking place.
Fantastic.
That's it.
It's unbelievable. 11 years now?
Yes. Wow. I'm not sure I was old enough to start this thing 11 years ago, but there you go.
Yeah, I believe that. And, okay, approval of the minutes, 12th, December 1st. Do I have a motion on that?
I move we approve the minutes, the last meeting.
That's Steve Haldeman. Eric, yep. 2 seconds. Discussion?
Nice job,
Seeing
Aaron.
none. All in favor? Starting with Steve Haldeman.
Steve Haldeman in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chidester in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Becky, you said you had walk-in. You wanted to put in at this time?
Yeah, Raul from the Cedar Lake Association was going to give us an update on the Mass DOT project, but he's not on yet, so I'm not sure if he's still planning on coming on, so we can hold off to see if he joins the meeting later.
All right.
I can give an update later if he doesn't, though.
Well, it's 6:05. What do we got we can do between now and 6:15, Becky?
Yep, so we have a couple of requests for certificates of compliance, an extension request, and a letter permit request. The letter permit is for 18 Tantascwa Shore Drive, and it's a tree removal request. This is one, I did go out to the site, not sure if anyone else had the opportunity to. This is a site that we had a septic replacement a few years ago, notice of intent for, which was closed out. This is the removal of 8 birch trees. These are all trees that are kind of growing in within a hemlock stand. They're over 50 feet from the lake. I went out there, I did see him. He did provide an arborist report. A lot of them are declining. Based off the arborist report and going out there for the site visit, I don't have any concern with the removal of them. A lot of them are smaller, kind of understory, I guess I would say understory trees that really aren't really contributing to the canopy there. I don't think there'll be any loss of canopy with the other trees in the area. He is proposing replacement of 3 birch trees, not in the same location, which I wouldn't recommend planting in the same location anyways. I would recommend planting them and dispersing them with some of the open areas of the site. He also has 3 other small trees that he's starting his planting out there too. So I don't have any concerns with it. I'd recommend approval with those 3 replacements that he's offering.
All right. Any discussion?
Yeah, Becky, I have a question. I didn't get a chance to see the site. Are there enough trees out there that we shouldn't push for the 2-to-1 replacement?
Yeah, there definitely are. It's a fairly forested site. It's a small lot. The whole shoreline is forested, mostly hemlocks and pines over there, a few deciduous. He did have that septic replacement on the site a few years ago, and in that area, they did have to take a few trees out in that area, but they can't plant any more there. And the rest of the site is pretty heavily forested. It's a U-shaped driveway. The whole center U between the driveway and the road is treed, and then the whole side where these birch trees are is treed as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Should we have a motion on the floor before we discuss it?
Well, we can put a motion on the floor if you like. Go ahead and put a motion on the floor.
I'd like to put a motion on the floor that we approve of the plan as submitted by Becky with her recommendations included.
Steve Halterman.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Stephen Jadesta?
Stephen Chittister, I approve.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Halterman, I approve.
Eric Gaspar?
Eric Gaspar, I approve.
Ed Goodwin, I approve. All right. That's everybody.
David Barnacle approves too.
Oh, David? Geez, David. I'll tell you. Out of sight, out of mind, David.
That's it.
It's going to be hard. All right, that approved. That is approved. Becky, next.
All right, we do have a permit extension request. This is DEP file number 300-1004. This is 168 Lane 7. This is a permit that we issued almost 3 years ago. What the project was, there was tree removal and also some landscaping, including redoing of a walkway down a steep bank to the lake and a new portion of that walkway. They did have the trees removed shortly after getting the permit, but the rest of the project was put on hold. They did have some family events that occurred, and they weren't able to complete their project. They are requesting a 3-year extension for this, just as they do have some continuing family concerns, and also with COVID, they just want to ask for 3 years to make sure they can finish the project. I don't see any concerns with that here.
Is there any erosion occurring, Becky, as a result of what's been done?
No, because the only thing that was done was the tree removal, and most of that was up. I don't know if you probably don't remember which house this was. I do, but it was up past the steep embankment going down to the lake. A lot of it was towards the outer extent of the 100-foot buffer zone, more closer to the house and beyond. So no.
Any conversation from anyone? Do I have a motion to give a 3-year extension?
I move that we give it a 3-year extension. Steve Alderman.
Steve
Eric
Alderman.
Gaspar, second.
Eric, second. Further discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Barnacle, before I forget you, how do you vote?
David Barnacle approves.
Stephen Jadessa?
Stephen Chittister, I approve.
Steve Alderman?
Steve Alderman, I approve.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar, I approve.
And Ed Goodwin, I approve. Becky, we got time for one more? Quick one?
Yep. So we have 2 requests for certificate of compliance. One is DEP file number 300-1043. This is 68 Westwood Drive. This was a more recent permit that we issued. This was a landscaping project. The work was completed out there. If you remember, included kind of adding in a new boulder retaining wall, kind of at about the 50-foot buffer zone, and stone steps going down towards the lake. No work within resource area. It was just a buffer zone project. Work was completed and stabilized, and I do have the letter of substantial compliance from the engineer for that one too. I have no concerns with the project.
All right. Anybody on the board?
This is David Barnacle. I think this is the way that it's supposed to work. When the project was completed, the people asked for a certificate, and they had all the paperwork correctly done.
All right. So are you making a motion to accept, David?
I make a motion to accept, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And do I have a second?
Eric Gaspar, second.
Eric, seconds. Do I have any discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none and hearing none. Stephen, how do you vote?
Stephen Chittister, I approve.
Steve Alderman?
Steve Alderman, I approve.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar, I'm in favor.
And Ed Goodwin, I'm in favor. David, do we get you?
David Barnacle, I approve.
All right. All right, Becky. We are now at 6:14. I will slowly turn the page and start to read. 200 Lead Mine Road, Heinz Farm Conservation Land. Request for determination of applicability continued from November 17th. Town of Sturbridge, owner applicant, removal of dilapidated structure. All right, Becky, you're on.
All right. So, like I said, we continue this from November 17th. This is a project that I've been working on with our facilities coordinator. We had to file the RDA here for the Heinz cottage due to the proximity of wetlands where the cottage is and the access route. So we were waiting at the last meeting we had with our consultant submitted a non-traditional work plan to DEP in regards to the removal of the asbestos on the site. We didn't hear back from DEP at that time. Since November 17th, we did hear back from DEP, and the plan had to be slightly revised based off their comments. It was revised and resubmitted to them and approved by them. The only thing so the next step is we're going to take that non-traditional work plan and use that to go to bid for a contractor. Like I mentioned at the last meeting when we discussed this, we do have a project manager who will be overseeing the work, mostly because of the DEP requirements in regards to asbestos. But we will be providing some project oversight here. We do have to use the trails as the access. Within that plan, it does require that the contractors have small equipment that do fit our trails. The only thing that I anticipate for the Heinz cottage is right when you get to the cottage that we'd have to cut some of the mountain laurel back there. But I don't anticipate any additional work within the trails because we asked for small equipment because of the constraints there. So the only thing that I'm going to have to, that the facilities coordinator and I discussed was adding in for our work plan that the contractor is required to install erosion controls at the Heinz cottage per my direction and have extra erosion controls on hand if needed. So I think that now that we have the non-traditional work plan, we can move forward with this project. I would recommend approval. We will be working to select the contractor and make sure all the conditions are adhered to, including installation of erosion controls at this property. So I'd recommend a positive 2B. We're not approving any resource area delineation, whether or not shown on the plan. Positive 5, subject to our local bylaw, and a negative number 3. And just as a reminder, too, I think I mentioned this in the last public hearing for this, but everything will be, because it's slightly dilapidated, everything will be hauled off, bagged and hauled off by the contractor as required by DEP, and we will have a dumpster located at the entrance to the property, and everything will be hauled off site. So nothing will be stockpiled or stored on site. Everything will be bagged and hauled right out of there. That's all.
Great. Comments from the committee members? Mr. Barnacle?
I'd like to make a motion. I make a motion that we approve the process as described by Becky.
Do I have a second?
Eric Gaspar, second.
I do have some
Gotcha.
comments to add to it, however.
Go ahead. Go ahead, David.
Becky, would it be possible to indicate to the contractor when they're doing their work about gaining access to the dilapidated building as you described it, that they make it such that the Trails Committee could then use that as an access point, and we could potentially put signage inside of that area where the cottage is at the present time, indicating why that trail was named Cabin Loop in the first place.
Yeah, I
wouldn't
think
take
that
much.
we could do that separately. Yeah.
And I
well,
think
I don't
that
know if
since
would
they
be
have
within,
the
like,
equipment
scope
on,
of what the
what I'm thinking of is they have the equipment on site, and getting mountain laurel roots out is difficult without specifically heavy-duty equipment. And since they've got the equipment and they're taking it off-site anyway, if we could get them to pull it out, you're only talking about 4 or 5 plants, which will spread the way they're spread up there at Heinz Farm. You know, that's easily a 10-foot opening. I think it would be worth a discussion with the operator.
Okay, yeah, and I'd have to talk to Opakam Land Trust about that too. But just so you're aware, I mean, I think it would be nice. We've had a lot of Eagle Scouts come through, doing different projects, and I think it would be nice the area where the cabin was to maybe do something like we saw at Burgess, like that little outdoor classroom with some benches that people can take the opportunity to use that area a little bit more. So I'd like to, once we get the cabin out, maybe see if we can get a project like that to happen there. And with that, maybe include doing some type of interpretive sign for that cabin.
Yeah, I totally agree with
for the
that.
history.
My concern is getting the mountain laurel roots out.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd have to check with Opakam where we're going to put the sign and get their approval and do all those things.
I'm not worried about where we're going to put the sign. I'm worried about the entrance itself because of the mountain laurel roots. I personally have been part of a trails team that tried to take mountain laurel roots out, and it is brutal.
Okay.
Without big equipment. Anyway, and I apologize, Mr. Chairman, if I've been talking over people, because without the visual signage, like having Eric hold up a pen or a pencil for me, it just doesn't work.
Not a problem. No, I don't have a problem at all. In fact, you know, you're going to talk for another 10 minutes, I think. What is it to the next? 4 more minutes. So I'm just watching the time.
Don't forget
no,
public comment when you're ready.
Yep.
Well, you do know that we have
Jeff,
one item that didn't make it on the agenda that we're supposed to discuss.
Oh, wait, let's stay with this one, David. We're on
Okay.
200 Lead Mine Road.
Yeah,
Jeff,
that's right.
we
We
see
have
if
a
there's
motion.
anybody in the audience would like to speak on this.
Good evening. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the 200 Lead Mine Road application? Is there anyone that would like to speak to the 200 Lead Mine Road application? There is no one to speak, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeff. Hearing no one, let's have a motion on 200 Lead Mine.
We already have one. You have a
We need to
motion.
close the
and
public
second.
hearing first, right?
All right, let's close
Now
the public
we have a
hearing.
motion on the floor. No, guys. We have a motion on the floor that we have to vote on first, and then we can close the public hearing second. There's a motion on the floor already.
You're absolutely right, but I think, all right. Well, let's go back then. In the discussion, I'd like to put a hold on the motion and go back and close the public hearing. Do I have a second to do that?
Eric Gaspar,
I'll
second.
second it.
Yeah. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Steve?
Steve Horseman in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. David?
David Barnacle in favor.
All right. Now we have a motion that you made, David, and it was
Yep.
seconded by Stephen? Or Steve, not Stephen. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, we're voting on 200 Lead Mine Road. Stephen Chidester?
In favor. Stephen Chittister.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Horseman in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, so it passes. We are now at...
Now, for another period of time,
Yes? We're at
Well, you have to
624.
go
I'm going to
into
go right on. I'm going to go into
Oh,
the
okay.
625 Ladd Road. We're at 625, 27 Ladd Road. Notice of intent, file number 300-1056, continued from November 17th, 2020. R. Jennings, 508 International, applicant A. Sulu, owner O'Neill, representative, revised project description, design, and redesign of the present bridge. Former project description, replacement of decking on the existing telephone bridge. Okay, Becky?
Mr. Chair, this is Stephen Chittister. I'm recused for this hearing.
Thank you, Stephen. Becky?
All right, so So we continued this from November 17th meeting. Just a recap, at that time, you voted to request a peer review. So I did solicit requests for proposals. I did reach out to Art Allen at Ecotech, Robin from GZ Associates, and Scott Myers at Oxbow Associates for requests for proposals. I did receive two, one from Art Allen at Ecotech and Scott Myers of Oxbow Associates. I don't know that if you had a chance to look at those because of the not getting my link issue there, but I can quickly go over them if you like.
Go ahead, Becky. I didn't get the link as much as and I think I have some reasons on this end too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. So, Ecotech, gave us a peer review consulting proposal. What we requested was reviewing flags, the wetland flags in the field. I believe there's over 3,000 linear feet of BVW out there to look at. So they would look at the field, they'd review the plan with regards to accurate identification and delineation of all the wetland resource areas, also evaluate the notice of intent for completeness with both the State Wetland Act and our local bylaw, policies and performance standards. So then he'd provide a written report with their findings and recommendations within 3 weeks of the notice to proceed. That initial review, he can also provide recommendations of special conditions of approval as necessary. And the peer review cost for the scope of those services is $1,900. We also have, let me pull it up, Oxbow Associates submitted a proposal for the peer review. Same thing, review the boundaries of resource areas in proximity with what's in the field and on the plan. And then also with that, they'll note any flag amendments and conduct swing poles or high-resolution GPS field locations for any suggested amendments to the boundaries and prepare a report with tabular inventory of any flag amendments. In addition to that, they'll review all NOI documents, including the plans, that for technical completeness, clarity, and compliance with state and local regs. They'll conduct one single site review for the resource area delineation, as I talked about. They'll provide a written report with their findings, which will include any recommendations, amendments to the boundaries, and they will provide representation at one virtual meeting. Total cost for that is $4,500. For the record, we've used both of these firms for consulting services in the past. Oxbow Associates did do the Cedar Lake Mass DOT review for us, and then our Allen does a lot of reviews for the board currently.
Do you have a recommendation on which of the two we should go with, Becky?
Sure. I think that either one is qualified to perform the review. I think that Art Allen, I know that he was involved with some additional work in the area, so he's slightly familiar with that. And with discussions with him previously, he's worked on permitting for outdoor recreational type similar places to this, so he might have that experience with that. He did say that he'd have that done in 3 weeks. And I guess keep that in mind now that it's winter, that can change things, especially since we know we're getting the snowstorm. Since we have to do a delineation review, I don't know that either firm would be able to meet a 3-week deadline anyway. So we'd have to keep that flexibility in mind there too.
Okay.
So I think for this
Mr.
one,
Chairman, may I ask
maybe we go with Ecotech.
Okay. I'm going to go to the committee. David, I'll start with you. Go ahead.
One question for Becky. is there a significant difference between the two proposals? Is there anything that stands out that makes one proposal more than twice as expensive as the other in terms of function?
Well, I think overall,
There's someone on the
right, you're getting the same thing.
Go ahead, Becky.
Okay.
Becky,
Right. I mean, there's a lot more wording. Oxbow's associate, they kind of outline the scope of services more. You know, there might be more if they find flags that they think are wrong. They'll provide kind of more detail. They're going to GPS those things. Probably put together some type of map for you to review. So there's a little more kind of technical things that they'll provide. I think. I think the end result is the same thing. Are the flags correct? Where's the NOI stand with performance standards?
Okay, thank you.
Steve Haldeman, any questions?
Yeah, not so much a question as a comment. I think that Oxbow will bill us for what they do, and they have some contingencies in there, as I recall. Isn't that correct, Becky? But my comment is that GZA, that we've looked at their proposals in the past, and Oxbow and Art Allen, they're all three are very qualified, and we would get really good product from any three of them. I think we have a good pool. The problem is that if we keep using Art, these other people will drop out, and I have had that experience in other types of work done where people say, I'm not going to apply because you seem to always use so and so. So that's a thought that we should have, that we should consider.
Eric?
Yeah, I mean, all I was going to say is I don't seeing an absence of a significant difference in the quality of the work product or the end result of the bids. I think we go with the less expensive option in this case.
And Ed Goodwin, I agree with you, Eric. Simply, you know, if I was looking at the three to do work on my property, they're a good pool, but 1,900 to 4,500. I would go with the 1,900. Simply put. Who else have I not? Stephen?
Oh, he's recused.
Oh, Stephen's recused.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Stephen. I do that every time to him.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
else?
in that case, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the third-party review for DEP file number 300-1056 in the name of Ecotech.
We have a second on that.
Second.
We probably should close it. Before we do that, why don't we close the public hearing?
Mr. Chair,
If you
are
close
you
the
not going to
public
take...
hearing, then you can't have any discussion.
Oh, that's right. It's not closed. Right. You're right. All right. So I have a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry to interrupt.
What happened?
Sorry. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I was
please.
just going to add, don't forget to go to public comment before you close the public hearing.
I will. Yep.
Yeah, Becky, I'm okay with going with Ecotech, obviously. It's a big difference in the price, but I'm hoping, Becky, that you explain that we thought that both these proposals would give us good product, but theirs was, they lost because of the cost. I think that's important.
Okay.
Eric, anything?
Nope.
No? Jeff, could we go to the public, please?
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 27 Ladd Road application? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 27 Ladd Road application?
Yes,
This is Stephen Chittister.
Wait a minute, hold on. We have Steve Chidester, and who else? Who was the gentleman that just spoke?
Just Glenn Kowalski listening.
Glenn Kravosky.
Just to let you know I'm here. Thank you again. That's all I have to say.
All right.
All right, then, Steve Chidester, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to remind the Commission that there was a determination that was made previously that McKinstry Brook is not a cold water fishery in the vicinity of this property. And I was hoping that this third-party review would include a review of the status of the location, the proximity of the cold water fishery to the 27 Ladd Road property. So I would request as a member of the public, this was part of the petition that was submitted at the beginning of this process. So I would request that the Commission add that to the third-party review. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, back to the board. Do we have a motion for approval?
Yes, we already have that.
Yeah. And we have a second?
We have a second. We're still in the discussion phase.
Okay, we're in the discussion phase, and
So, should we, what can somebody educate me, the other members of the board, the other three of you, about whether or not we should be requesting that the McKinstry stream be added as part of this third-party review? Like, what are the pluses and minuses of doing that?
not that I'm near. My thoughts on it, Eric, as it was being said, it would be something that we would be concerned with in our final determination. If it is a cold water stream versus not a cold water stream, I wouldn't want us to be having a lengthy discussion and going back at the merits of it.
Okay.
Well,
that's the only thing I would say about it. Go ahead, Steve.
Simply put, cold water fisheries are extremely protected by the state regulations, and if there's a question as to whether or not it's cold water or not, then that should be determined. But seems to me that the Fisheries and Wildlife would weigh in and tell us that. Is that not the case, Stephen?
Yeah, so Steve, there was never any input provided by anyone other than the consultant, Glenn Kravosky. There was no third-party review of that, so that was the only input that was provided to DEP. That's why I'm asking that there should be a third-party review of that.
Is it mapped as a cold water fishery?
McKinstry Brook is. It's a state-registered cold water fishery.
And it's a cold water fishery. And if he wants to contest it with the state.
But wouldn't it be worthwhile to have, if we're going to have a consultant out there, weigh in on the location of it in relationship to the project?
I think it's
Through the chairman, when you have a moment.
Yeah, I was thinking that we would want to get to you. Hold on.
Okay.
Steve, did you want to say something? Sorry, I'm going to go to. What? I'm having trouble with your hearing, Steve.
Okay, I think I'm being talked over. I guess there's a process for determining whether something is a cold water fishery or not. The first thing they should do is review it with the state, the mapping of cold water fisheries, because it's not something you can go out and look at and say, yeah, this is a cold water fishery. It's a little more complicated than that. not just putting a thermometer in the stream.
Mr. Kowalski, why don't you weigh in here on this, please?
Thank you very much.
Because I know you're...
Stormwater regulation, thank you very much. The stormwater regulation says if you're discharging water into cold water fishery, then your standards are changed, or if you're in close proximity. We are not dumping into McKinstry Brook. We have 2 warm water impoundments, a bass, pickerel, perch, bluegill, between us on our intermittent tributary to those 2 warm water impoundments, large size, and we'll present documentation on how large they are and how shallow they are, with the warm water discharging eventually into McKinstry Brook, which is also in this upper reaches of warm water fish also. So I already talked to Fish and Wildlife over this matter. If they found trout, which they did down by Heritage Country Club, below Route 20, you can look at this in a number of fishery systems. They'll just include the entire system all the way up to the top. We're not dumping into McKinstry Brook. We're dumping into 2 warm water impoundments, and I'll give you the acreage of those before that water eventually discharges into, AKA McKinstry Brook, which is actually impoundment. Again, warm water. So our pleasure to present that distance that we are from the cold water fishery as it relates to our project on 27 Lad, and eventually, which is a different subject, the discharge basins that we're at in Charlton, discharged into warm water impoundments also, and eventually into McKinstry Brook, which we're not in close proximity to the cold water fishery. So let me, as a side...
How much of a problem... I got a question for you, Glenn. How much problem would it be for Art Allen to just weigh in and give us a comfort level on...
Yep.
What?
Yep. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He would he'd look at the mapping, which was not available at the time that Mr. Chidester is referring to back during, I think that was 16. It had just come in after that when the state was mapping on all of our cold water fisheries, which I was pushing and insisting for 15 years, and eventually came in. But lastly, he could weigh in that there are warm water impoundments. We're not in close proximity, and that McKinstry Brook itself is shown on Oliver as a cold water fishery. And you can also find it online under cold water fisheries for DEP and under Fish and Wildlife, where they electroshock below Route 20 and found brook trout down there. I have the data where they found
that answers my question.
They're by Heritage Country Club.
All right.
I don't see a problem.
With that in mind.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to simplify things, we are not really having an issue of whether or not McKinstry Brook is a cold water fishery. We're having an issue of whether or not we're discharging into that, and it appears that we're not. Not really, sorry.
No, we're the word being used, Steve, is directly. It wanders around and makes it to it. I don't know. Is everyone else having trouble hearing? Yes, no?
I've been having some issues here.
You've got a lot of talk over tonight, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. All right, I want to move this along. So I'd like a motion we have a motion on the floor to approve Art Allen for this project. Do I have a motion to include some input on cold water fisheries on McKinstry Brook with that?
I think, Mr. Chairman, this is Eric. I think if Mr. Kravosky has no real issue with it, and he is their consultant, that I say that we ask if it can be added, and as long as he doesn't come back and say it's going to create additional work, additional cost to the project, we make the ask.
I agree. Yeah. I'd like to put that in the motion. Mr. Barnacle, is that all right with you? Was your motion? David? David Barnacle.
I'm here. I apologize. I had to go straighten out a little bit of the computer my wife is on.
So you made this motion, and we're asking if we can add a review of the cold water fisheries into that. Are you in agreement with that?
I'm not sure exactly what that entails. They may have to go through a whole new bidding process, won't they?
Well, that's the thing that Eric just said. If it became major, then they'd have to come back to us. But if you could just go ahead and include it within the bill.
Okay.
Okay.
That was a good clarification. Thank you, Eric. Yes, I'm in favor of it. David Barnacle.
With that, we have any further discussion on it? All right, I'm going to move it to a vote. Steve Alderman.
Steve Alderman.
Eric Gaspar.
Eric Gaspar, I'm in favor.
David Barnacle.
David Barnacle in favor.
Good one in favor. Thank you. Yep. All right.
We need to look at a continuation of this hearing.
Should be.
So keeping in mind our next meeting is January 5th, which is 3 weeks from now. And then we have the next meeting, which would be January 19th after that. So he did say that
Christmas and New Year's.
He would have that within.
Yeah.
Right.
So the 19th is. I would not put it in for the 5th, Beck.
Why would we not?
Glenn, are you
at
still
the
there?
First
Are you
week
okay
in
with
February?
Well, that's a possibility too.
We don't have any meetings. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have our meeting schedule set for February yet. We got to talk about that later. So.
Well, why would we not want to put it to the first week in February in order to be able to avoid both the holidays, the new wrinkle that we put into it, and the fact that we're going to have a hell of a snow? I don't know.
Okay, that's
up
a good
to
question.
The chair.
Yeah, you sound like one of my grandchildren, David, with the big snow coming. I think probably the first week in February does make sense.
Will our meeting be canceled? Oh, no, I'm not in school anymore.
Becky, why don't we continue this to the first week in February, and we'll find out the date when.
Okay, Glenn, are you still on?
Okay.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Yes,
I
sir.
just want to
yes,
check to make sure it's okay. Is that fine, Glenn? First week of February?
That's fine.
I'll get back to you with the details.
Thank you.
All right, good.
Very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we are now to 118 Lead Mine. It's now 6:35. 118 Lead Mine Lane, Lot 1, 89 Lead Mine Lane. Notice of intent, DP file number 300-1073. Continuation from November 17th. A. Kelleher, owner. Applicant Norm Hill, Land Planning Inc. Representative, construction of a single-family home, well, and septic. Becky, you have an update for this?
Yep, Mr. Kelleher's on, so I'll let him give an update, but just as a recap, so we left this off on November 17th. At that time, what was discussed was Mr. Kelleher could move forward with the restoration work on the upper lot portion with oversight, and he could move the garage. You did ask him to look at revisions to the new house lot plan, specifically looking at moving the limit of work on the slope. And then we also discussed the lower lot area. What was asked was to look at revisions to the driveway down there in proximity to our 25 and 50-foot setbacks, and some of the other restoration work that needs to be done down there, the stream bank kind of roadway concerns, and then also with the parking area. So Gary is on. He did give me a update earlier today, but I'll let him give you guys that update.
Okay, good evening, everybody. As Becky said, I did have talked to her, and as well as Mr. Murphy. Mr. Hill, the garage is moved. The culvert, trap rock, keystone pipe is removed, and that's all been cleaned out. Some of the trap, as instructed, has been placed in the culvert going down Lead Mine Lane to certainly slow down the flow. My next step up there, as the garage is moved, I can start going by the plan that you have, and I will start finishing off with the conservation soil mix and plantings in the, I don't have the plan in front of me, roughly 345 square feet of disturbed wetland. That being said, with the upper part, and I know I had to obtain another machine, which I've done, and I've been working on that, and I will continue to work on that, and I want to have the upper lot complete by the end of this coming weekend, as long as we don't get all that snow that Mr. Barnacle's worried about. I know we're going to get some, but we'll have to just move it and carry on. The lower lot, I know everybody, I'm certainly myself, because that's the machine work is needed up top, and I did have to lease a machine, but I lost the other one to the other owner. So I am concentrating all my efforts up top. I think it's going very nicely. I don't know if you guys have been up there before. Mr. Murphy has been up there several times to oversee and inspect and advise. So I think it's going very well up there, and we'll just be moving forward. I hope to get the plantings in, so I can get some native shrubs from that particular area and get them in some warmth and be able to retrieve the ball out of the ground, the root ball. And I'm certainly hopeful that we can get those things started, even though they're in a dormant stage. So I am moving forward. I'm doing the best I can with what I got, and I'm pleased with what I have so far. Becky, to your concerns about the bottom portion, we've been there. I know I've got the pictures of what has to be done, and we've certainly talked about the erosion issues and the diversion of water that I'll deal with the town with or talk to them with. But my main concern right now is the upper lot, to get that one all straightened out and back to as close to original as possible.
All right.
But I also just like to remind you folks that I've been asking to do this work since May, and I was never permitted to. And I wasn't, and I sat a dormant machine sitting there when I could have been. This work could have been done 6 months ago, but I was held off. So now in November, I get permission to do this stuff. As everybody knows, it's not really a good growing season. But I will continue to move forward and work through as much of the winter as I can to get it done.
Okay.
The work that I'm doing now, through the chair, Mr. Goodwin, the work that I'm doing there is precisely what we talked about and what we all knew had to be done way back in May, June. I just wasn't permitted for whatever the reason to get in there, but I am moving forward on it.
Okay. Anyone on the conservation Commission have a comment? Stephen? Steve? Eric? David?
I actually went out and took a look at the site.
Yeah, look.
Well, I was disappointed, of course, but I've been disappointed from the beginning. But Mr. Kelleher was out there raking, doing some work in the road. I'll withhold judgment at the present time. Thank you.
All right. All right, that's an update. I guess do we want to hear from the audience? Becky, if there is any, I don't know if for a simple update we need to. Jeff, could you check with the public?
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 118 Lead Mine Lane application? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 118 Lead Mine Lane application? There's no one on the line, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. All right. Gary, we're all set for this evening.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Barnacle, though, I thought that was you up there, but is there something that really constructive comments you can give me about what's going on, or you're just going to leave me in the blind?
No, I went out because I had not been able to attend some of the other site visits. And you were surprised because my car was so bloody quiet.
Yeah, well, you probably scared me.
Anyway, so
all right,
what is the date of the continuation, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I would think the first week in February.
Exactly. Can I make
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but
Okay.
okay, Becky, you don't have a date for that
Is that
yet?
okay with you, Gary?
That's fine. I know you and I mentioned January 19th.
It looks like it's going to be February 2nd.
Okay.
Yep. So I guess, right, I was going to recommend continuing it for at least a month because, it is winter, so there's not a lot of restoration work that can get done out there. I mean, I just want to reiterate from before, I mean, the commission was waiting for a plan to do the restoration, and that's kind of why I think it took so long. We didn't have the details needed to give the go-ahead to get that work done. But moving forward, continue to do what you can.
And we need a plan.
Obviously,
We need a
it's
plan
winter,
for the
some of
bottom.
the stuff's going to have to plant to. Right. Things are going to have to hold off till spring with some of the actual getting the plants in. That's understandable. So, do what you can with the upper area. And then before the next meeting, so it looks like that would probably be February 2nd for the first meeting in February. At least a week prior to that, like Ed said, they're still looking for the plan of what to do in the lower area. And that needs to get reviewed and approved by them before work can occur down there.
Okay,
and then also for the notice of intent is just, work with they gave those suggestions for revising that limit of work line to get something back in at least a week prior to that meeting. And then also, too, with the oversight from Mr. Murphy, what was indicated, too, at the last meeting was some reporting to come in. So he should submit some report detailing the work that he's overseeing and kind of guiding you out there, too, for the commission to look at before the next meeting. Okay.
And I can certainly reach out to you, Beck, in between with any questions or any. I mean, this sound for some reason is really terrible tonight, and I'm sometimes getting every other word. But you and I can talk about this to make sure that we're all on the same page. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Very good. Okay. Thank you, and hope everybody has a great holiday.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. We are now at 53 Wells Park Road. Notice of intent, DEP file number 300-. Do we have it? Notice number, Beck, TBD.
Oh, sorry. I tried to set the mute up there. No DEP file number yet.
Okay. For Walker Pond Association,
Tom Barth, applicant, construction of a footbridge. All right. Becky, you're on. Hi, Tom.
Yep. All right.
Hi. Thanks for taking this.
Go ahead,
No problem. So I'll just quickly give a summary. Jeff, can you allow me to share my screen, please?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll quickly go over, and then I'll allow Tom, on behalf of the Walker Pond Association, to kind of go over the project a little bit. I've been working with Tom on this. So what this is, wait till I get my screen sharing up here. So this is a trail improvement project. So this is existing trail system that was developed in the 60s as part of the Walker Pond Association properties. This is just an overview that Tom gave. There's some areas of existing trail where they'll do maintenance. The area of our focus is on the center of the screen, area of wetland work. And within that area, what we have is we have a couple sections. One, an area that's got some flooding events that occur, and another area of a stream crossing that has two existing kind of undersized culverts people are crossing over. So what they've presented here it's some improvements to these areas for the users of this. So there's pedestrian use here. They do have the horse stables in this area, and they do use these trails for those purposes. So they'd like to make improvements for the passive recreational use of the trail, and then also which will result in a big improvement for the resource areas here. Tom, do you want to go into the specifics a little bit, and I can go through the details that you've given us?
Yes, thank you. The trail is 60 or so years old, and there's a stream running through across the property at one point that needs a bridge about 20 feet long in order to pass over. There's a picture of the existing culverts that are in there that are undersized, frequently gets washed out, and requires maintenance work. So our proposal is to remove those culverts and put in a 5-foot wide footbridge that would cross that. Piers would be helical pilings that should be the least disruptive to the resource, and pressure treated lumber would be the construction. We have horses in the neighborhood, so they're currently going down there, and they would still have access that way. There's another area where there's a cross section of the bridge that we're proposing. Another area is wet only part of the year. There's a small culvert, and in this area we're proposing a bog bridge, I guess it's called, that would just be the same construction, but it would be 60 feet long, and it would be 6 inches off the ground or so to allow water to run under it and allow walkers to stay up out of the mud and the water. Again, the helical pilings we think would be the least disruptive way to handle this. Becky came out and we talked about what length is needed, and she felt that this bridge would cover the area where water flows during high water or heavy rain runoff, and the rest of the trail then, besides this bog bridge and the first stream crossing, would be improved with crushed stone, and there's actually quite a bit of that, but it's not in areas that typically get wet from runoff. So on this photo, the areas marked in black would just be improved with crushed stone. There are tree roots, there are stones, there are areas where we feel the safety could be improved for people that want to walk through that area, and so and this is our idea of how to do that. The total length of the improved area is something like it's about 800 or 900 feet. So it's a fair distance, but the areas of particular concern, I think, would be these wet areas, this stream crossing and the bog bridge. Well, that's where we are. We hope you folks will agree that this is an improvement to the resource and a safety improvement for the neighborhood.
All right. Becky, you have any comments?
Yeah, so what we're looking at here for resource areas, we have riverfront area associated with that stream crossing, bank, land underwater, and bordering vegetated wetlands. No bordering land subject to flooding here. The installation of the bridge, I think when we talked about like the helical piling, we figured that it would probably be about approximately $100 100 square feet of temporary impact to riverfront area. But as there's an existing crossing here, there's no new impact, so we're not going to, they'd actually be taking the culverts out. I mean, you couldn't tell completely from the picture because the leaves over it, but removing those culverts looks like it would be a fairly easy thing to do without causing any significant impact to the stream base down there. The installation of this bridge would span the bank. I think we got it at a 20-foot bridge, and when we measured out there, we're about 12 feet or so for the stream. So we're spanning more than 1.5 times that for stream crossing standards. The decking does include gaps for sunlight on the bridge and the bog kind of boardwalk that they're installing. Those helical pilings actually really minimize impact versus doing like traditional footings. Glad to see those being used here, as we're not going to be looking at excess materials to be removing off site afterwards. I think that both the bridge and the boardwalk type bog bridge, if you want to call it, will be an improvement to the existing trail system that's going to benefit resource area here. As I said before, we don't have a DEP file number or comments from them yet, so I think that we're going to have to hold off with a continuation for this. I guess one question which I hadn't really thought about before was getting the crushed stone in. How would that be proposed? It is a kind of a big section here. Would you have to kind of drive that in with like UTV type vehicles or?
Yep, it would have to be taken in with a bucket loader of some kind before the bridges are constructed.
And that's something, some type of equipment that would fit on the width of the existing trails?
Yeah, I expect so, yes. There's land available near the tennis court where materials could be temporarily stored and then distributed from there. That would be at one end of the trail.
Okay.
All right.
That's all I have for comments at this time.
Mr. Barnacle, any comments?
Yeah, first of all, I love the plan. I thought the plan was extraordinarily well done, and I thought that it is definitively an improvement. Ed, you and I can remember when we went out there because of the attorney's house when he wanted to make some significant changes, and we noticed as soon as you went by the tennis courts, it became a mess.
Yeah.
I would like to make one suggestion, though, in terms of the construction, and that would have to do with the helical pilings and the bog bridge. You indicated that they're going to be about 6 inches above the water line. I would suggest that it be a full step, so like 7.5 inches, and since you're using the helican, you won't have a problem in being able to adjust it that much. But I'd rather err on the side of good judgment since we've now been getting 2-inch rainfall when it rains. So that would be my only suggestion.
To raise the height to 7.5 inches rather than 6 inches.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see that there would be a problem with that.
Good. I'm totally in favor of the project. I think it's great. And taking out those 2 pipes is outstanding.
3 pipes. 3 pipes. Mr. Halterman, anything?
Did you say Mr. Halterman?
I did.
Okay. I keep hearing all kinds of weird noise. I went out there today and hiked around on that, and I think that the idea of putting the crushed stone, especially when you go over where the bog bridge would be, and they're proposing 60 feet, 30 feet on either side of that culvert. On the far side, I thought there was still a lot of areas of wet, where it gets wet, but I think the stone is going to take care of that. And clearly, without the stone and without that bridge, there's a lot of erosion that the walking on that with horses and people and so on stirs that mud up and goes right into the lake. So I think it's a great idea, and I enjoyed walking out on there today.
There's the small culvert in the area where the bog bridge would be, and Becky and I measured off from that culvert. The bog bridge would be 20 feet away from the tennis courts and 40 feet toward the tennis court. So the bog bridge would cover would cover all of the area that we thought was subject to the erosion.
That sounds great. I was under the impression it was 30 feet on either side, so I thought that was not. I like what you're saying better than the 30 feet on either side.
Okay.
Eric?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Tom. I think it's a great plan, and it was nice. Steve's right. I enjoyed walking down there today too. The horses were very friendly. I think I almost took one of them home. That white one. She wanted to come home with me.
Well, they're all dressed up today. It's cold.
Yeah.
I had a dog. Friend.
The one concern I had as I thought of it, and it's because I'm a cynical Irishman, I think. No motorized vehicles, right? Tom?
Yeah, I'm losing the audio.
My question is, I don't want, or my opinion is, I don't want motorized vehicles on that walkway, pathway, course-way. I mean, are we going to have this situation where we've got people coming down there in their golf carts and so forth?
We have golf carts in the neighborhood. When we first started talking about this improvement, the feeling was that there's really no reason for the golf carts to go that way. I believe that's the case. I don't know if there would be golf carts on that or not. If that was a condition of yours that we somehow block them, then that would be something that we'd have to address.
Okay, because it's going to tear the area up.
There are. So, you're particularly concerned about the area between the tennis court and the Cronin's house, or the area
right.
where the bog bridge would be?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. If
it's really an old wetland that's been filled, and it's going to continue to try and make its way back, and golf carts would do a number.
If the trail is improved to a 5-foot width, and the bog bridge and the culvert replacement bridge there were 5 feet, would that satisfy your concern? Do you think then the vehicles would be up out of that? No.
Yeah, but it's going. You're talking about making it so they can go faster. I mean, there's going to be. If you took a look at that and you looked at any of your, used any golf course that anywhere they go near water, it's all tarred or it's all torn, one or the other. The next thing you know, they're going to come around that corner and they're going to be in the wetland portion. Particularly if it's a Sunday afternoon and they've been having a good time.
Okay, well, so yeah, I mean, I guess we'd have to come up with some way to prevent them from going down there. Posts in the trail or some such thing, I guess, if that would be a condition.
It should be. I don't know. Anybody feel differently than I do on it?
Well, we have horses traveling through there now, which would they would still be, they would be all right in your opinion.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman? I think the issue is maintaining the trail. If you were going to put stone down and say this is the trail and it's been improved to reduce erosion and make it easier and safer, if you allow golf carts and ATVs and whatnot, they're going to have wear and tear on the trail, and it's a matter of maintenance. So if you allow with golf carts, then you're going to increase the amount of maintenance that you're going to have to put up that trail.
Well, my concern is it's not a matter of allowing, it's just people are going to do what they're going to do. So we would have to put up something to prevent that from happening, which could be done. I think we could put some posts somewhere so that the horses could go through, but the golf carts, it wouldn't be wide enough for a golf cart to pass.
Mr. Chairman? That would do it.
Go ahead. Who's Mr. Chairman? I can't see.
This is Doug Smith. I'm the president of the Walker Pond Association.
Okay, go ahead, Doug.
And I'd like to point out that there is another trail that runs on the other side of the stable property between Oaks Cove Road and Library Lane North that the golf carts can use. So the risk of golf carts using that lower trail where it's really kind of out of the way for folks is really much lower because the upper trail is much closer to folks.
So, Doug, you're saying you don't think it's a problem if we banned golf carts from there?
Well, I guess I'm saying that I don't think very many golf carts would choose that route when they have a much better route to choose.
So you're a promise me guy, huh?
No, I mean, Tom's right. We can't prevent it, but I'm concerned that anything we do to prevent a golf cart from using this trail will also prevent a horse from using it.
No, that's not necessarily so. A sign can say no golf carts, and people should abide by it.
Oh, absolutely. We could certainly put signage up. I was a little bit worried about we're trying to make this safe. We're trying to potentially wheelchairs, potentially other stuff could be using this trail.
Absolutely.
And I don't.
Those are all good things, and I'm not against any of them. But if you put ATVs and golf carts on that, you are going to be tearing it up. It's wet. It is right next to a wetland. It's part of a wetland in actuality, and it could be argued that we're actually filling a wetland in order to do this. So there's got to be some protection from my point of view.
Okay.
So, but Mr. Chairman, this is Eric. It doesn't sound like we're arguing a similar point. They're concerned that we're asking for an obstacle, and you're asking for some signage, some permanent signage that forbids it. And obviously, if people break the rules, they break the rules. But this way, I think it accomplishes both things. Am I incorrect in what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I hear you. I agree. I'm not interested in blocking usage.
So, Tom and Doug, would you guys be okay with signs on the trail? No motorized.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, I would be fine with that.
Yeah.
Well, how does the rest of the commission feel? I'm holding chair here and holding court, and I don't mean to be. Stephen, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see signage that says no motorized vehicles.
Yeah.
Steve?
I agree. I think that would protect that trail.
David?
Just one question on that. A motorized wheelchair, would that be acceptable?
Of course.
I mean, you know,
Is it?
anything to do with a
What other
handicap
thing-
would be. Go ahead.
We have to make a distinction. If you call it a motorized vehicle, that does not include a motorized wheelchair because it doesn't pass the vehicular test. So if you put up the sign that says no motorized vehicles, that's good. And the wheelchair will have no problem because it is not a vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, since I said that, this is David Barnacle, and I am fully in favor of the signage. Thank you, Eric.
That said, anything else? I think it looks like a great project. We're not going to have to have a continuation. Yeah. Do I have a motion for a continue? Before we do that, why don't we, Jeff, see if there's anybody in the public that would like to speak to this, please?
Oh, Jeff's doing that. You're talking about this thing being 7.5 inches up off the ground. Is it going to slope down on either end so horses, people, and wheelchairs can go up and go across it? It'd be very difficult.
I'm sorry, I had trouble hearing the question, Steve. Would you mind repeating it?
Yeah, Steve, lean in. Yeah, there was a discussion that it was going to be the bridge was going to be 6 inches high, and then Dave suggested 7 inches, 7.5 inches high, I guess because of big storm. Are the ends of the bridge, either end of it, are they going to slope down and touch the ground so a wheelchair or people without tripping or horses without tripping will go up on the bridge?
That is my intention. I'd like to be able to ride a bicycle over that trail, and without being a 15-year-old again. So
you can't pop a wheelie, Tom.
I didn't see the cross section of the bridge, but I didn't see the federal. It was the section.
Yeah, I guess I didn't show that in the sketches, but my intention was that it would be the ground would meet the top level of the bridge, so it would be a continuous trail that you could run a wheelchair over or a bicycle, and not have to take a step up and down. Yeah.
Correct.
Gentlemen, I'm a 54-year-old man, and I ride my bicycle over that trail today several times a week.
Well,
good.
Go for it, Doug.
Doug's
I don't know what to tell you. Jeff,
I'm just waiting for an opportunity, Mr. Chairman. Are you ready?
I'm sorry. Yep.
Is there anyone on the phone that would like to engage in this conversation regarding 53 Wells Park Road? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 53 Wells Park Road notice of intent? There's no one on the public line to speak to this, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jeff.
Well played, Jeff.
We are continuing to the first week in February. And the reason for that is we don't have a file number. Does that hold you up, Tom?
Oh, no, sorry. The next meeting is January 5th. I would recommend continuing to January 5th.
Okay, you think you'll have a number then? All right.
I hope so. That's 3 weeks, so.
Can I need to get quotes and get work thought out. My take on this meeting is that you folks are in favor of this project, and that it's a technicality that we don't have the number, and I should expect permission to proceed with it. Is that?
That's correct. That's correct. You are correct.
All right. Thank you.
And with that, all in favor of a continuation? Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve?
Steve Hoberman in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Thanks, Tom. Doug?
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
All right. We're on to 501 Main. Notice of intent, DP file number 300-1084, continued from December 1st, 2020, Town of Sturbridge, owner applicant P. Parent, CHA Consulting, representative construction of a municipal parking lot. Becky?
Well, this is just because
Yep,
they didn't have a file number.
Continuation from last.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't have a file number or DP comments at the last meeting. They did issue a file number with comments, and the engineers did come back. They did review DEP's comments and did come back and revise some materials to reflect that. We do have Pete on the line. I will let him in a minute go through the revisions for you based off DEP's comments, but quickly. DEP commented that a 90% TSS removal credit can be assessed for the bioretention area with adequate pre-treatment. They asked them to revise the TSS worksheet for that. They also did want the Commission to know that they should consider a perpetual condition regarding the ongoing maintenance of the bioretention area, which is something that we typically would be doing in our permit, is that we'd have the O&M plan would have some perpetual maintenance requirements for that. They also did encourage the use of native species in the planting schedule, so they did look at that and revise and have some comments on that. We were waiting on those comments. One of the things that we talked about the last one was the last meeting was on one of the sheets, the plan sheets. It had the outline for the O&M activities. My just recommendation is that we have a separate sheet which we can condition for that gets provided to DEP, so they have a particular sheet for the O&M plan separate from the actual plan set. Not a big thing, just something so it's easy for them to find and have. We also talked about concern potential with snow removal and ice management on the property, specifically with concentrated salt use. There was a little bit of a discussion on that and looking at potential alternatives to just using a concentrated salt use. So I'll turn it over to Pete, and you can kind of go over with the revisions they made to reflect DEP's comments.
Good evening, Pete Parent with CHA. One of DEP's comments was about the 90% removal credit for the bioretention area. It was simply just a matter of changing the way we were calculating that on the TSS spreadsheet. We were taking credit for the Deep Sunk catch basin prior to the bioretention area, and they have the pre-treatment included in that 90%. So where we were taking a little bit better than 90% removal, we're now at the 90% for the bioretention. And then the perpetual condition for maintenance, that seems like something we would typically require on our end. If this was a private project that could end up being maintained by the town if the private owner didn't do it. But I think on a situation where it's a municipally owned property and you guys have your own operation and maintenance kind of in-house, I don't know that you need to do anything formal, but that's totally the town's call on that. And then the other issue they had was with a couple of the species of shrubs that we had picked out. They indicated that they weren't native, so we replaced the dwarf pink spirea with meadowsweet, and the Henry garnet summersweet with regular summersweet, and the New England aster with a New England blazing star, which from my point of view is exactly the same plant with a different name.
but that's okay. But we did keep the Japanese Okova up by the streets. They are listed in DEEP's Stormwater Handbook as a suitable species, and they do perform pretty well in a street treat type situation. So I think those are probably your best option to stay with those up by the roadway. I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have, but from a design perspective, we really haven't changed anything from a layout or a grading or a drainage standpoint.
All right, thank you. All right, Becky?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any additional comments. That I agree with them. They didn't change anything from the layout perspective. I'm happy to see that we've got the rain garden there. I think just from the last discussion, talking about that snow and ice management is just what would be outstanding. I think otherwise, I think this is a good project. Happy to see the 90% TSS removal, and like I said, the inclusion of the rain garden there.
All right.
That's all.
Mr. B, are we going to go through? I'm going to go through the members.
Chairman.
Do
you want to go
I'm going to go
public
through the
first?
members first. No, members.
But
first.
should we not have a motion on the floor before the members discuss?
No, we don't need to. We can just discuss it, then we'll go to the outside, and then we'll go to a motion on the floor.
And then another discussion time.
Yeah, go ahead. Mr.
It seems
Barnacle.
duplication.
You have anything to say about this project, or you're taking too much discussion?
I
time?
like the project. I like the project.
All right. Okay. Stephen?
Yeah, this is Stephen Chittister. So I guess we just need to discuss the, we had talked about having a no salt or a low salt restriction for this, and I think Jeff had voiced some concern that this would be treated differently than other municipal lots. So I guess, did anyone look into DPW, are there any other lots where they have this type of situation, or is that going to be an issue?
I see Jeff is waving his hand, so I'm going to go to Jeff. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple things, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish I could promise the commission we would use an alternative to salt, but I can't promise that. For us to do that in the middle of a storm, we'd have to go back to DPW, drop whatever's in the truck, reload the truck, go out, hit this parking lot, and then reload back at DPW and finish our routes. Now, there are times we use alternatives to salt when the temperature gets too low, but generally speaking, all the trucks are loaded with regular rock salt, and that's what we use. I can say we can try to do our best to limit the amount of salt, but I can't sit here today and promise the commission that we're not going to use rock salt and we're not going to do what it takes to make that parking lot safe. And that's really the nature of this whole thing, is the safety of the patrons that use that lot. It's on a slope. It's exiting on a very busy road. It has to be treated, and it has to be clear of ice. So that's our priority. I certainly understand your goals and your desires here, but that's my concern.
Mr. Chair?
Okay.
This is Stephen again. Yeah, so I appreciate that, Jeff, and I agree that safety is obviously very, very important. So there was some discussion, I think, the last time about this rain garden. The plants that are going to be put there are salt tolerant, so maybe we don't have a significant issue with this. I don't know. Is there any comment from the contractor regarding that again?
Yeah, so the species that we picked out here are, salt tolerant. I wouldn't plant them by the ocean, but they're going to be able to handle some winter salt without too much of an issue.
Okay. So,
Eric?
Mr. Chairman, David Barnacle.
Oh, go ahead, David.
I sent out a note indicating that our listing on 3.8 within our bylaws indicated that exemptions are available for safety purposes only. And what I would suggest is that the commission at this time take on a motion to issue an exemption to our 3.8 reg that bars us from being able to use salt in buffer zones. That will take care of the state regulation as well.
Okay.
That was one of the reasons why I sent that note out last week.
Yep. Steve, anything from you?
It's going to be an issue for the receiving waters down gradient. So there, it's a conundrum, and I guess safety is, and the whole thing of going back and switching over to another magnesium or an organic de-icer it seems onerous and probably cause more issues safety-wise to go back and dump the sodium and put another de-icer in there. It's just going to be a problem. So I don't see that we have much of a choice.
All right. Well, I've got you have given me what I need to hear, obviously, as far as where we're going as a committee. Jeff, you want to see if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this?
Good evening. Is there anyone on the audience that would like to speak to the 501 Main Street application? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the 501 Main Street application? There's no one on the line, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this project?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
That's what I thought. I was telegraphing your move.
Yeah. I need a second.
Steve Halderman, I second it.
Stephen Halt, second. Okay. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
And if you close the public hearing, we can't make any comments during the comment section, and there is one comment that needs to be made.
We can make comments during the comment section. It's just the audience can't make comments during the comment section. I'm closing the public hearing. Stephen?
Okay.
Yeah.
Stephen Chittister, I approve closing the public hearing.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Halderman, I approve.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor of closing the public hearing.
David?
David Barnacle in favor of closing the public hearing.
And Ed Goodwin in favor of closing the public hearing. Now do I have a motion to approve the project?
So moved,
Mr. Chairman.
And do I have I got Steve Haldeman in the motion. Do I have a second? Eric? Was that you that said?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
I'll second it.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Barnacle, you said you had some comments.
Yes, what I'd like to make sure of is that we include the fact that we are giving an exemption to the town for the use of salt within that buffer zone.
Okay.
In the interest of public safety.
The Wetland Protection Act specifically dictates that we can do it as long as it's for safety purposes.
Okay. Good. Consider it in.
So we have to make sure that we use the word
discussion?
safety in it also.
Right. Eric just said that. Yeah. Anything else?
It's already in the law.
All right. Without further discussion, Stephen, how do you vote?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Halterman in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Becky? Yep. Becky, what's next? Becky.
All right. Yep, I'm here. We have another request for certificate of compliance. This is DEP file number 300-709, 278 Cedar Street. So this is an older project. This was a septic replacement within an existing lawn area. All the work was within the yard. I went out there. It appears consistent with the plan. I have no concerns. Recommend issuance of a certificate of compliance. This came up as part of a real estate transaction. It was found that this old permit was never closed out. I have no concerns with it.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the certificate of compliance?
Eric Gaspar, so moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Discussion?
All in favor? Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve Halterman?
Steve Halterman in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. What's next, Beck?
Hey, I don't know if Glenn Kravosky's still on. I think he was on the public comment line.
Hold on, let me check.
We were going to discuss 9 Holland Road. Okay, thanks.
Glenn, are you still on the line?
Glenn Kowalski's here. Yes, Glenn Kowalski's here.
All right, he's on.
Okay, thank you. So, old business, we have DEP file number 300-959. You're welcome. This is 9 Holland Road enforcement order. Where we left off on this was we went out and did a site visit back in early November, I guess it was now, looking at what's left out here to address the enforcement order. We went over the stormwater concerns, and then also the cutting of vegetation out there, which wasn't permitted. So we reviewed the stormwater stuff. One of the last kind of things out there that was addressed and now has become an issue again is where the entrance where we came off of Route 20 onto the site where the gate was. So, and I can let Glenn go into more detail about it, but just kind of quickly, Glenn's been working with Mass DOT to address the clogging of the catch basins out there and how they can resolve that, because once it gets clogged, then it overflows onto 9 Holland Road, and it's kind of creating those gullies on the site and some erosion. So they're working to address that. But also as part of that, there was some correspondence back and forth with DOT. I did speak to a representative at DOT because we do have that failed drainage pipe over there. So they are working on that too. It sounds like that's probably something that'll get addressed together as they're working on plans out there. So that's one thing. They did work to address the stormwater issues on site. Like I said, we've got to keep working with DOT about those issues over there too. And then Glenn also submitted his mitigation plan for the tree cutting. What he's recommended is removal of some of the invasives that are growing out there and some mitigation with that for some planting. I don't know if you had an opportunity to review that or not. I do have it here and just can kind of go over it real quick for you. Right, so the mitigation would be to remove and cut Norway maples, any invasive species root systems on the McConnell property, and at the top of the slope of the DeBonaventure property. I can put the map up in a second for you. They've obtained Mr. McConnell's permission to work in this area, and the excavator will be utilized to perform the work with EVT Inc. in doing the oversight of the work. Where the root systems are removed, they will smooth the area, seed, and lightly mulch with straw. The applicant proposes to plant 5 winterberries and 5 high bush blueberries on the McConnell property and the top of the slope of the DeBonaventure property at the 9 Holland Road. So let me see. Let me share my screen here. Screen on. Share. That's what I just read. Let me find his plan. So this is where they're saying they will do that invasive management, which goes on both properties. So my comment with that, I think that's a good plan to address as a mitigation out here. The one thing, question, when would that work be done? Because obviously, we're getting into winter here, so obviously some of the removal can be done provided there's no snow cover, but planting would have to be in spring. And then the recommendation would be that I think all the restoration plantings, I think we should keep on the 9 Holland Road property, because the other property is a private property, but also too because that area we will be having DOT will be doing some work out there to address the stormwater discharge pipe issue we have out there. So not 100% necessary, but just thought that maybe it'd be better to keep it on the subject property here. That's all I have. I don't know if you want to add anything in on that, Glenn.
I appreciate that on the McConnell property, it does have a good overstory, and moving everything over to where there's less overstory at the top of the slope on D. Bonaventura. We appreciate that. If we would go along with that, it makes sense, as DOT will be working to replace that defunct, dysfunctional pipe system coming off of 20. And so thank you. We would do that. And also on the removal, we would prefer to do it obviously when the ground is not frozen. It isn't now, but as Mr. Barnacle had said, depending on how much snow we get, we want to be able to see everything. When I direct them with this 1 foot wide mini excavator bucket, we would rather make sure that we're removing 85-90% of those root systems by seeing the ground. So we would push this off until potentially at the very end of the winter, March 15th and so, or into April, when we can see things. We do also not have a concern with doing it in the spring. This is Hinkley soil, coarse gravel. It's level at the top. And so we're not, and these are rubber track, very small excavators, 6 foot wide, just enough to be a little bit stronger, obviously, than man, and we pop them out. And I just made a list of where we've done this program very quickly here: Foss Reservoir in Framingham on DCR property, Corps of Engineers, Hodges Village, Oxford, Mass. for 8 years, Indian Ranch or Webster Lake, we're doing it, Sutton, Mumford River at the headwaters below Singletary, we've done it there, and there's several other locations where we've done full removal of exotics and just leaving the native. We would not get involved with any natives when we're doing this work. And the plant species would come from New England wetland plants, which we have great success with. And the other thing with those berry crop plants were the winterberry that we had suggested, and the high bush blueberry, just the fact that they're food crop for wildlife, and that's why we brought those in. Thank you.
Stephen, any questions?
Yeah, this is Stephen. Stephen Chester. Yeah, I did. So let me get this straight. After all the trees that were cut down, we're getting essentially 10 bushes as a total replacement for all of those trees?
Can I, through the chairman, majority of them, we had the site inspection, are exotic invasive Norway, thank you, exotic invasive Norway maple saplings, not trees. And yes, that's what we had offered, because we have a good overstory at the McConnell property. We still have 90% of the overstory shading that ground. And if it would help us to move this along, we would propose to double up with the native species, but we are removing extensive amount. There's a couple days work of exotic invasive multiflora rose, Tartarian honeysuckle, Japanese barberry, Oriental bittersweet, and that's going to be full removal. And when we're done, if you want, and secondly, on the we can take a second look the second year. Normally, we're getting 85 to 90% of these root systems, and we can show that we're very successful in this method that I use. But we could also add in that on the second year, we would go back and look and see if there needs to be addressing another 10% some plants that might pop up after that. Because normally you're not going to get the 100% in the first year. there's always, even Oriental Bittersweet, if you lose a little bit of root system, you're doing very well. But I just left the site, in fact, in Sutton, South County Chiropractic. I left there this afternoon. No exotic invasives left after 2 years. And that's on 146 in Sutton. So we would offer also, again, a follow-up in the second year. Or recommend, should I say. I know I'm at your mercy. So that being said, again, I actually have one last thing. I'll give you 5 more, not give, 5 more bush species, New England wetland plants are reasonable in their cost. And I have the authority from my client, because we work together. He has me on several projects. I am his lead. It is a we. And I can say that we would offer more native species still in the second year follow-up. Thank you.
Steve, what do you have to say?
Were there? I was under the impression that there was trees that were cut down along the river and not just over on Kevin McConnell's property.
Exactly.
I might just be wrong.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah.
Through the chair. Some of the trees behind the building, as you know, and I think you have it in your file, the fire department wanted some of those along that trail to keep that open in case there's a fire. So we also have those pine limbs that came off. And again, 5 to 6 inch DBH is a tree. The stuff that we see, not that those dead Norway spruce that came down that they cut down, sure, those are trees. They were dead. Those are exotic invasive. I'm working with the Arbor Day Foundation on stopping selling those trees, as a matter of fact, those saplings. So that's what I have to say about.
Let's keep with the committee here. Yeah.
Yep. Go on.
Eric,
thank
you got anything?
I just have a question for Becky. So Becky, by putting all of the restoration plantings, which I'm not sure that I'm happy with the amount of them, but separate from that, if it's only on 9 Holland and not on the other property, is in your opinion, is the canopy that's left there as good and will continue to develop to protect the wetland as it was before the trees were taken down?
Are you talking about on the McConnell property?
Yes. Because if we're not doing any restoration there and there's sufficient canopy, I guess I am better with it. But it just I want to make sure that it seems pretty sparse in there. But I am, of course, of the group of us, the uneducated one.
So I think on the McConnell property, there is a mature canopy there. There's a good canopy cover. Most of what they cut, right, I think was like understory shrubs and sapling trees to open up the visibility through the understory. So I think the canopy's fine there. And I think that besides the invasives that they're going to get the roots out, everything else, the roots are still there. I think some of that understory stuff will grow back up. I think the problem with doing the restoration plantings on a different property is it's a different property with different ownership, whereas we have the enforcement order for 9 Holland Road. And once we issued that, then we realized that the cutting occurred on that other property too. I mean, I guess I'd rather see them along the top of the bank of the stream. I think it would probably be more beneficial in that area.
Okay. So is there a remedy? Is there a remedy that we can use through our commission to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this enforcement order, I mean, I think you can be specific about what you want, and maybe to what Stephen was saying earlier too, that, right, that's just not the area that where cutting did occur. There was, all along the stream here if there was, smaller trees, shrubs, limbs, things that were cut. So maybe it's better to kind of disperse throughout. Maybe, I forget how big Winterberry gets, but I think it does get pretty decent size. Maybe you do want to add a few deciduous trees in that area that will get larger than that. I mean, I think it's kind of specific. There's still trees along here.
I don't think Winterberry's going to play in the NBA.
Right. No, I don't think so either. But I think you'd have to really kind of specifically look at where you want to place things. Even just this photo, you can see that there is, there's still mature trees in areas, but there might be specific areas that might be better suited. So maybe you want to say, yeah, we'll take your 10 shrubs, but we want 10 trees. And after you do the invasive removal out there, we cite the location of them where they're going to go in. Maybe that's an option.
Okay. And one last question. With the removal of the exotic invasive that's in there, wouldn't that be an improvement to the property anyway, and really to the benefit of the property owner? And not that I begrudge them that, but isn't that kind of a net good to the property and to the property owner? And really, that should be done anyway, and there's very little restorative property.
Can Glenn Kowalski answer to that?
Yeah,
go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah,
If you
that's why I
Thank you.
Sure,
Sure.
that's why I'm asking the question.
Many, if I could, many properties in this region where you're not working or where your parking lot is not in your house or your structure isn't, they're invaded to the max with exotic invasive. So it's not like we're just improving our property, so we're not really doing anything for the environment. We're removing exotics. In fact, I just had a site as I'm a peer reviewer for Charlton, where we're taking them out because they seed out and go into Glen Echo Lake, which then they disperse. This is multiflora rose downriver. That's my recommendation on one of my peer reviews that's going out in 2 days. So exotic invasives are eaten by birds, seeds are spit out all over. We're giving the native species room. I've done it on my own 15-acre property here in Oxford on the French River. It gives room for the native species to get sunlight to the ground, your herbaceous layer, your other native species to get going. So exotic invasives, as they came in when the areas were not fully mature or trees weren't there, say through succession, once they get established, they're hindering the growth of other native species. So by removing them, it enhances the growth of your native species. They're exotic invasive because they are so aggressive. So by removing, they allow for natives to come in. What I'm getting at here is, if we didn't remove them and we never worked in that area, there was never a building, it's just going to get choked up. And do we care? A lot of people don't care that they're there. So I'm not sure if it's a benefit to my clients or to McConnell that we're removing them. It's a benefit to the environment. That's why, in fact, one last point, if I could, DOT, even in their subcontract bidding, they have it now to remove them, to take them out. I just bid on a few years ago on the 20 Route 12, in Auburn. That bid, I did a $495. They're in the bid contracts. U.S. Army Corps now require you to remove them. So it's not just something I'm doing. I know that you're not aware of this stuff too much, but many programs.
Glenn,
thank you. I just want to point that there. Thank you.
If the Bonaventura fell over an invasive species, you wouldn't know what it was. In both cases, Eric, to your point, neither of the landowners really care about invasives versus non-invasives, and I know one and probably the other are just looking for the next money to come along to pick up the properties that they have that they want to sell for whatever development. If you look at Kevin's property, he across the street, he put in that big parking lot. If you look at that blank spot on the screen, that's the parking lot that he put in for the Blackstone building across the street. So we're really just, Glenn's got a little thing going here, and he's going to take out invasives and put in some shrubs.
and that's it. Nothing else is happening here that we know of at this time. Di Bonaventura would love to sell that property. And as soon as he does, then they're going to come in and they're going to want to do what they want to do with it, obviously. And those shrubs are going to be gone fast, depending on what they do.
Well, could I, through the chairman, if we do plant them at the top of the slope on Di Bonaventura, most of that area is still going to be within 25 feet. It's under your bylaw. It will still be in that no disturbance zone because that slope is a 1-to-1. So that's why we propose to plant them at the slope so that we would have them there even in the future. Whether it's shading and cutting out the view of the people, whatever they're doing on Di Bonaventura, that's not my concern. My concern is having them there that they stay and they're going to be a forage crop and they're in a protected little zone right there at the top of the slope.
All right. Becky, we've got to close this thing down. We've taken it as far as we can go. Anybody have any more comments?
Can we ask one more question, Ed?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm curious about the high bush blueberries. I was curious about them when they were going on the McConnell property because it's so heavily treed with a great canopy, so that would seem to impede their growth. And if we move them onto the 9 Holland Road property, it seems, I'm not sure, we have to ask Glenn, of course, but with an all gravel substrate, I'm not sure how well they'll even grow there.
Through the chairman, just to make a point, Mr. Barnacle, you've been around this regulation forever, just like me, 79. EPA used to rate high bush blueberries E, if you recall, before we have our new rating, which meant grows as well in upland as it grows in wetland. They're growing in upland that's similar to, in fact, red maple were also rated as the same. So they'll grow in upland, wetland, whatever. BSC group just looked at something with me, and we had a winterberry at the top of the slope, and Jillian Davies said, geez, look at it, it's an errant. I goes, no, 1/3 of the time it's rated FAC wet, which means 2/3 of the time it grows in a wetland, 1/3 of the time it grows in an upland. So these plants grow will grow in those conditions. There's a lot of sunlight. I agree with Becky, or at least they're more protected, or at least they're on our property that we control. But also on the McConnell property where I originally proposed them, you do have that steep 1-to-1 slope, which allows sunlight to come in. So on that top of the slope, not as much as you're going to get on the Di Bonaventura. That's all.
Thank you.
All
right.
Anything further, gentlemen?
Yeah, through the chair, Ed. This is Stephen Chittister again. We've been waiting for, a year for this revegetation plan? I don't remember when this was, when the cutting was done, but it was a long time ago. And I don't know. I'm pretty upset about this is what I've been waiting for to see, how this site was going to be restored. I don't buy the argument that they can't plant plants on a property that they cut trees down on. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I for one, am not happy with this.
Steve Haldeman?
I agree with Stephen. We're spending a lot of time talking about the McConnell property. That's wonderful. And I don't have a problem. There's a high canopy there. And, you can debate whether or not blueberries are going to grow in that shade. There are some sunny spots. But I agree with Stephen. That is not me. What's going on along the? I think that's what Stephen is talking about. Is
right?
The trees cut down and trees should be planted.
Through the chairman, they were saplings again, and they're exotic invasives.
No, not through the chairman. No, Glenn. But I'm going through the committee here now. I'm never going to get this thing done if I don't go through the committee.
No,
Eric,
thank you.
Eric is on.
I mean,
don't go through the chairman again without going through the chairman. Go ahead.
I don't think I have anything else to say. I'm not particularly pleased with this either. I think there should be more restoration done. So that's just one man's opinion.
David Barnacle?
Second the motion.
There wasn't a motion.
No, I know. I'm agreeing with the other three members.
Okay. So we're at a point here, Becky, where we're saying this plan isn't satisfactory. We need some restoration on the property that the damage came from. That's what I'm hearing the committee say. We need to add that to the plan.
I want to see more trees and more plantings
on the property that they came off of. Go ahead.
Yeah, just both properties.
Just real quickly, you cut down saplings. You don't want to call them trees. Let's not call them trees anymore. You cut down saplings, and I recall that saplings do become trees in your legal parlance there. Put some saplings back where you cut down saplings. We won't say the word trees anymore, and we're done with you saying we didn't cut down trees, we cut down saplings. Plant saplings.
All right. Glenn, you want to come back? You want a continuation on this?
Sure. I will come back. I'll come back. We'll save the money on the mini excavator for a couple of days. We'll use that kind of money and we'll put saplings in, and we'll show them at the top of the slope on the plan, and that'll be your saplings. And we'll use native saplings, and I know where I'm going to save that money. It'll be the exotic invasive removal, but the saplings are taller than the exotic invasives, and we'll come up with a number, and we'll pass it through Becky along with a sketch or X marks on the plan where we're going to put them, and we'll be nice to understand a certain number, but if the commission had a number in mind, it might be interesting to hear. But I have a number in mind, and we'll come back at the next meeting.
What's your number, Glenn? What are you thinking?
Well,
what number?
Generally saplings, we're talking 2 to 3 inch caliper. I'm looking at 20. I'm trying to figure out 20 to 25 saplings of northern red oak, and other things like the black birch that are in there, if I can procure them. And that's going to be a chunk of change, and that'll give you, and they'll be at the top of the slope.
Stephen, that sound like a good number for you? Stephen? Sound like
I think we should treat this like any other project. They can, do the restoration, and we monitor it, and if it looks like it's restoring the property, then that's fine. Otherwise,
All right.
More work has to be done.
All right. So we have a course going forward. And Glenn, you're good with a continuation to Christ.
Yes,
when?
sir.
When do you want it?
It won't take long to put together a revised plan. I can come back at your next meeting if you choose to have me back then.
Yeah, what's convenient for you is fine with us, because it's winter. February 2nd, okay with you?
Sure, yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.
I'll have
all
something
in favor
in
of that?
hand.
Any opposed?
Thanks.
All right.
Mr. Chair, do we have a meeting scheduled for February 2nd?
I think we do, yeah. Becky?
Did
you say February 2nd? What?
Right. We didn't. What I said was we only have our meeting scheduled through January. We left that discussion open at the last meeting. If we were to have first Tuesday meeting in February, it would be February 2nd. And you did already schedule 2 things on it, so we do now have a meeting on February 2nd.
Well, we're still well outside of the notice area. We can remedy that without a problem. I don't know that that's a
right.
I don't know that that's a hindrance at this point.
This isn't a public
Oh,
hearing
sure.
anyways. This is an enforcement order. So, and right, it's winter. He can't do the work. So that gives him the time to come back with what you're looking for.
Right.
And they'll be in a good place to do it in the spring.
All right. Anything else? What's the next one, Becky?
Thank you.
So I had
Thanks, Glenn.
fiscal year 22 budget,
Thank you very
and then
much.
for old business, we had the just a quick update on the enforcement order from Mass DOT regarding the Turnpike drainage system in Cedar Lake. And I'm not sure what happened to Raul because I thought he was coming on tonight. But just quickly, so that work did start this fall. We did have a pre-construction meeting with them in August, and they were going to be starting within a couple weeks. And then we were told that the project wasn't going to start this fall, that the contractor wasn't going to be able to do it. We did ask why and reminded them that they had promised that the work would be done this fall. So they did start a portion of this project. So the work that's been completed to date and now will be put on hold to the spring is they did at the end of Old Hamilton, where we did have the significant drainage work to be done. They did replace 2 of the failed drainage pipes coming down the slope. And then they did replace one of the paved swales over there that went into Cedar Lake with the very kind of riprap sized stones. So they did get that work done. Raul and I did go out there right before our last meeting. There was a Monday. We had some significant rain. We did go out there to take a look at it. Some concerns with some of the erosion controls out there, which have thus been fixed. And then also we did walk up on the west side of Cedar Lake. We did walk up there, and there was some significant flooding out there. Actually, that evening there was a big rain event that did that swale was full of debris, and it overflowed and did cause some flooding in the Verzillo residence, which was what Mr. Lincoln's house was over there. He's the one that provided the access to allow Mass DOT to go through his property to do that drainage work last winter. So they did have some concerns. DOT was made aware of that. They were on site that night. We did talk to them the next day about that. So since that occurred, we did have a follow-up meeting last week with Mass DOT. We did a Zoom call. We had representatives from DOT. Myself was on there. Jeff was on there. Raul, a couple other members from Cedar Lake Association, Ann Goby and Lucas from her office were on there as well. So we did go over the project, some of the concerns. Peter Reed actually was on there as well. He's the consultant from BSD Group that we've been working with. He did go out there and look. There's a portion of the paved swale on the west side that they weren't proposing to fix, and that's the area that had the debris filled up. There's some damaged areas in there, and that caused that flooding onto that private residence over there. So they are going to look at that area and see if there's some additional work they can do over there, and come back to us with a plan. What also was discussed was the concern about communication and keeping a better communication with us and Cedar Lake Association on status of the project, when they're starting work, things of that nature. So we had a productive meeting. We should be having follow-up with them within a month from that meeting, and Senator Goby's office will help to kind of keep that on track. So we should be seeing some type of plan to address that one swale area over there. And the intent would be that this spring they can give us a timeline of when they'll come back out and finish that work in the spring.
All right.
That's pretty much it there.
What did they do with the flooding in the basement? You said they went out, they looked at it, and did they do anything immediately to the swale?
Yeah, I think DOT, Arthur Rusko was out there that night, cleaned debris out, and got it flowing better in the swale again. I know that he had, from what I heard, he had the fire department out there that night because they really didn't know what was going on, et cetera. So I'm not sure how they're remedying that with him, but they do think they fixed the problem.
Becky, this is Stephen. I haven't had a chance to see it yet. The place where the debris built up, is it by any chance where that pipe's coming down from the pike and meeting up with the I guess, stream channel? That was an area that we had talked about that was kind of broken up that we were hoping they were going to address. Is that where the debris built up?
So there's a couple pipes that come down. So that first pipe that comes, like when you walk all the way up and it looks like stream channel pipe, that's not where it was backed up. It was further down. Like that's the area they're actually going to fix. It's the couple 100 feet of swale in between. It was kind of in the middle of that section. It was right above his property.
Okay.
But I don't think it wasn't where that pipe was. There is another pipe over there, but I don't remember specifically where that pipe came in.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Becky, do you have his number and his name and number? The guy that let us on the property there.
I do.
Whose basement got flooded? A follow-up call to ask him if there's anything that needs to be further to be done. Find out where he stands.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I did. Yeah, I did reach out with him, and I know he was working. He was working with DOT on that. But I'll follow up with him again.
I know, but he was working. He was cooperative, and he was involved, and then he got nailed. So.
Yeah, I know.
So. What else have we got, Beck?
So it's the end of the year, which means we're starting to work on our budget for the upcoming fiscal year 22 for June. Just quickly, we don't really have anything specific extra that we're asking for this year, so just wanted to kind of quickly go over that with you. We're pretty much staying with the request that we've been doing. So for purchase of services, just quickly, we do have a line item for training programs for $14.50, and that covers training programs for myself and commissioners. Usually you attend the MACC program. I'm not planning to ask for any additional funds this year for training programs. We also, purchase of services that we have is our lakes testing program. We currently have about $4,400 for a line item budget. For that, we did see some increases in those costs last year. 4% it went up. I looked at if it went up another 4%, and we're still okay. So I don't see a need for an increase on that, but it is something that we'll have to monitor kind of moving forward. As it's mostly the lab to see if their prices increase. Another item we have in our budget is we have a line item for legal ads, and we have $250 in there that we've used, and that's if we have to place our own legal ads. We do have a new line item we put in last year for consulting services at $5,000, and that can cover engineering, environmental consulting services, delineation, some type of review if we need it. That kind of falls outside the normal scope of a permitting of a project. So if we had a project, or if we had something like we used for the Cedar Lake review with DOT, that we have this in our budget. So I'd like to continue asking for that for next year. Moving on, things that we also have in here for our budget would be supplies. We have a line item for office supplies, $1,100. We keep that consistent. Been consistent for quite a few years here. Magazine subscriptions, $100. Supplies for lake testing program, that's another $100, would stay the same. A clothing allowance of $250 to stay the same, and then field supplies for $100 to stay the same. We have a few other charges within the budget. Dues, this covers our dues in office and your dues for MACC, as well as the Mass Society of Conservation Professionals for myself and the admin. And that's pretty much, we have that at $517. That pretty much covers those dues. There's also a mileage line item of 150, which I'm requesting to keep the same. So nothing new, as I mentioned. I don't know if you have any questions or comments on those things. Most of this, since even before my time, has kind of stayed the same without any significant changes. The one thing we did add last year, like I mentioned, was that consulting services. Any questions? Comments?
Becky, did we use the consulting services from last year?
This year we did not use those at this time. Depending when that, we thought the Cedar Lake project, I was anticipating it'd be done this fall. We actually would have a use for that, but as it is an unusual year with COVID, that project and maybe other things that could have been used for, didn't get finished. So
does that money go back to the town?
It will. Yep. If we don't, everything we don't use goes back to the general fund. And just to keep in mind, we still have, the fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th, so we still have 6 months. We're only halfway through. Yeah, we're only halfway through the fiscal year, but this is when we have to start doing budget for next fiscal year, so we still could use it.
Okay. What else, Beck?
Well, that's all I have on the. Oh yeah, meetings. We got to discuss the meetings. Do a meeting schedule. We kind of left it open last time. We talked about a couple different things. We set our meeting schedule for the month of January. We have January 5th and 19th on Tuesdays for meetings. We do need to set. We just kind of set one, February 2nd, with those continuations. But we do need to set at least, if we can get through half of the year schedule. The importance is now that we're having these virtual meetings, we do need to kind of get these meetings on the schedule. We do need to get, for the upcoming ones, we need to be able to provide the public with what our meeting schedule is, with our deadlines as they're starting to plan projects. But we have these virtual meetings. Ours are broadcasted. We need to have the public access for them. And we can't be having meetings when other boards are potentially having meetings. So I think it's important that we kind of get that set. Not, I don't know how long we're going to continue with virtual meetings. I don't think anyone knows at this time. But if we can at least get through August tonight for our meetings for this coming year, I think that'd be helpful to get those established.
All right, well, start. So January is the 5th and the 19th?
Yep.
February is the 2nd and the, what, 16th?
Well, we were talking about every 3 weeks instead of up to but we would need to move to Thursdays, and Stephen may have had a conflict. Were you able to vet out that conflict, Stephen?
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't. So, If we go with Thursdays, we used to have it on Thursday nights, and I actually had the conflict back then too. So it just means that whenever we have a meeting, my son doesn't go to soccer practice. So
I don't know that we want to. I don't know that we want to sacrifice family obligations. So
yeah. So I'm not Becky. So we can't. Tuesdays are out. Is that what you're saying? Becky, the selectmen are using Tuesdays?
Well, no, there's a couple Tuesdays that we'll have to reschedule meetings, but we can still have our first and third Tuesdays. There's just a couple Board of Selectmen meetings. I think there's 3 coming up this year that they have holidays on their Monday, so they will be moving their meeting to a Tuesday. So there's 3 that we'll have to just move.
Becky, the January one, we're moving the Board of Selectmen to Thursday. I think the next one is later in the year.
No, there's February 16th, April 20th, and then...
February 16th is not a Board of Selectmen meeting day.
That's what I was told.
February 16th?
Sorry. Yes. Yep, you guys meet on the 1st and 3rd Monday, right?
Yeah, but that's.
I was told that. Yeah.
Well,
February
Becky, we'd
15th,
like to-
President's Day holiday.
What happened
We'd
every
like to
2
meet.
weeks?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I see it.
Yeah,
February
that was-
16th.
Becky, we don't want to meet on Thursdays because Stephen can't meet.
Yeah. Oh, no, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll
And,
stick with Tuesdays.
Tuesdays as well as we
Okay.
can, and then
Yep.
give us a recommendation on the ones that were bumped out by the selectmen, and send it
Yep.
to us, and we'll take a look at it.
And we're talking about every 3 weeks instead of every other
No,
week?
That was what
No, we
was
can't
what
do
they
that.
was discussed at the last meeting. Yeah.
Oh, there's some good reasons for it.
Yeah, we can't do the every 3 weeks on a Tuesday because we alternate with the planning board, so it just wouldn't. It's not possible on a Tuesday. So
So we're going to
So
go
I
every
think
2
we
weeks.
could. That's the other option. Yeah. Well, I think we could go through these now if you want.
So, do we have to have it on the same day, or would it be are Wednesdays clear?
Some might be, but so say for example, so February 16th, if we need to reschedule that Tuesday meeting, we can't move it to Wednesday because that's when the ZBA meets. They meet the third Wednesday. We could move it to February 18th, which is the Thursday of that week, just for that one, or just
Becky, the
cancel it if you want to.
Becky, the ZBA doesn't generally run a long time. Can we move the ZBA up earlier in the day and then have the Conservation Commission after it?
I can check with Jean on that. I don't know. All right. Well, as long as we figure out our meeting schedule by January 5th, I'll work on it. We can put the February 2nd one up because I think that will be the next one we'll need some deadline dates for potential applicants for. And then on January 5th, I'll try to figure out what we can do for rescheduling some of these ones that need to be rescheduled and give you a new meeting schedule in advance of the meeting. Do you want to do that?
Sounds great.
Yeah.
All right.
So would anybody have a conflict then if we went to every 3 weeks, but on Wednesdays into the future, and if there was some play with that with the ZBA?
That's a good option. ZBA meets the third Wednesday of the month. The third Wednesday of the month.
Right. So we just need to if they could move up, and it's not going to be in the way every time, just when it happens to fall on the third Wednesday.
I can look into that for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure
I think that it's.
I'm not sure that that's a viable option,
David.
Because if you look at the numbers, most of our meetings have been going until 9 o'clock or after. And if you take out 3 meetings a year, that means that more of the meetings are going to go until 9 o'clock or after. That puts us in the position of having over 3 hours.
The problem is the continuations. And Becky believes that if we go to 3 weeks, that some of these things like the DEP file numbers not coming back and causing continuations can be rectified, which will net out a fewer number of public hearings that we're going to have, which hopefully will streamline things and make things easier for us. Now, I mean, I think that that's a pretty strong hypothesis myself, and it's not the public hearings; it's the continuations that are our problem.
Yeah, and I don't know, but your assumption is that giving them different distance is going to solve it.
Well, but how many meetings did we have this year where we didn't have
an a DEP filing number that came in, within a week of our meeting.
Yeah, but the file number is a 5-minute problem. If it's just a file number, it's a 5-minute problem.
Yeah, but it's
we
a
bring it to the
5-minute
next
problem
meeting like we did
this week,
like we
and
did
following week.
Well, yeah, it's a 5-minute, so. All right. I think I don't care whether they're every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks. I really don't. And I think we've decided we're going to shorten up the time for the meetings. I think that's good too. But I think we need to come up with a pattern that we can know, like pretty much, if you're working around and you're talking to somebody or you're doing something or your customer calls you, you pretty much know you check Tuesdays to see whether you have a meeting or not. If they ask you, hey, can you meet me on Tuesday? So we need a pattern that we can look to. It can't be a random night. It's got to be a night. It can't be a Thursday night. So we need Becky. You need to come to us with a recommendation on how to handle it. I'd be glad to go with anything that falls within that.
Okay.
All right.
And Becky, I can continue to work on this, trying to get a resolution to my Thursday night conflict. So I'll work with you directly on that.
Good.
Okay.
What else, Beck?
That's all that I had. I just quickly wanted to share. I just wanted to just quickly share. I was kind of going through this year since it's our last meeting of the year and just looking at some of the numbers of filings that we have this year. So just kind of quickly, notice of intent this year, we had 35. Last year we had 23. RDAs, we had 37. Last year we had 19. Resource area approvals, ANRADs, we had 2 this year. We had 1 last year. Extension requests for permits, we had 12 this year. We had 2 last year. Amendment requests, we had 9, and I didn't look at how many we had last year, but certificate of compliance requests, this year we had 42. Last year we had 19. Forest cutting plans, we had 4 this year, which was the same as last year. So letter permits, we had, so letter determinations become letter permits, so I'm going to pull out the determinations out of that because I already gave you the RDA numbers. So we had 61 letter permits last year. This year, so we had 8. So all right, I'll say it this year. Last year we issued 80 letter permits with the determinations. 61 were regular tree removals or bylaw only. This year we had 106 letter permits. 37 of those were determinations. So we had 69 without. And now, if you remember last year, one of the things we talked about that we started doing this year was looking at reviews, which we called like administrative approval reviews. So certain tree removals that I was allowed to do and certain bylaw requests we talked about within the 100 to 200 foot buffer zone if it was something that was considered what DEP would call a minor project within their exemptions, like, a shed or something within an existing yard, I could review those. So, so this year with letter permits, 21 went to the board, and I was able to do 46 that met that criteria. So just wanted to share those numbers with you guys.
That's good.
A big increase in permitting this year, despite COVID. So, we did twice as many certificate of compliance and almost twice as many RDAs. So, yeah, interesting.
Thanks for all your hard work, Becky.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah, good job.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman, if I may. How many hours a week is Aaron working for you for administrative type?
So that went up this year to 30 hours a week, and we do have 75 extra hours were given to help cover the meetings, so it doesn't take away from office hours. So previously the position was 25 last year. I think it was 20 not too long before that too. I mean, it's gone up since I've been here, but it's still part-time.
There's certainly a lot of administrative additional work that's going on, but all of these projects that you're talking about most of them require you to go out in the field and we'll just call it technical as opposed to administrative.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, because this job seems to have changed, the position, the work at the Concom and everything has really changed. Is there a possibility of going to the Personnel Committee and getting a part-time technical person that can go out and look at trees and some of the whatever you would delegate for them to do? I'm kind of looking at Jeff, but I'm asking you, Becky. You're the one that would put that proposal forward. It would also be something that I would encourage the commission to pay attention to what Becky just said and think about what it means in terms of quality of the work, the timeline, timeliness, and certainly I've had no problem with quality or timeliness, but I sense that oftentimes Becky is being run ragged, and we do not want to burn out an amazingly talented person.
I second that.
I couldn't agree more. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing. Thank you for saying
that.
No,
I agree. I don't know if we this doesn't really fall under old business or new business. If we want to put it on as a category for a meeting to discuss,
Mr. Chair, I certainly understand, and Becky and I have had this conversation. There's just no money for new people, and it's just the nature of things. We're eating $500,000 to $1 million lost revenue next year. I've told all the department heads in my budget message that there's just no new money for new people. And we've had requests from the police department for additional dispatchers, fire department for additional resources. We're making some changes to free up resources in other departments to take on new responsibilities, but it's a zero-sum game, or there's savings there. There's just no more money.
Okay. All right. On from there, Beck. Anything else?
No, that's all. I just wanted to go over those permitting numbers for you.
No, appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion.
Before you make the motion, for the next agenda, we should make sure that we have that discussion on fines that we were going to have tonight.
Okay. Sorry, Dave.
So we have, did I have a second on Stephen's motion?
Second.
Eric, all in favor? Barnacle,
Merry Christmas.
Damn it.
Happy New Year. Happy holidays, everyone.
Year.
Thank you.
Same to everybody.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Beck. Thanks, Jeff. Yep.
Thank you.
Good night, guys. Happy holidays.
Yep. Take care.